in general, and actual
They're just gonna
sports
be like
reporting.
the freaking development league for each ESPN, as it feels
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
You
but
know, it's
this is the thing.
sad.
When ESPN, yeah, but when ESPN come calling, how can you say no to that?
But that's
How can you
I'm
say
not
no to
saying that
that?
to
It's ESPN.
blame people or not. I'm just saying it just kind of sucks that Daily Dot, who like you said has been carrying the torch for like the last year, 2 years, right?
And of course, Breitbart have been touching some incredible stories. I might
Okay,
add.
okay,
Um,
okay. But you know what I mean, though. You know what I
but
mean,
yeah,
though.
I think ESPN and maybe some of the traditional sports websites. Turner have shown a lot of interest in getting into esports. I'd like to see Bleacher Report get involved. That's
Which I
like the
know they do.
second.
They want to
Yeah,
too. Yep.
that's like the second biggest site. So I think once ESPN have the competition of like another big site like Bleacher Report, and they're gunning for to produce the best esports content, I think esports journalism finally gets to a good place, and it's going to be great to have legitimate companies like ESPN, like Turner, spearheading that charge. Whereas typically before it's been a bit of an amateurish pursuit.
Right. Okay, Moose. Thanks for your question.
Bye bye.
All right, one more, last one, guys. Zasabi. Zasabi. Hey, Zasabi.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. Got a question. You're our last caller, so make it a good one.
Oh, good lord! All right,
Pressure.
so
No pressure.
here's my here's my question for Richard. Are you still going to keep your finger on the pulse of esports, and would you consider coming back on the show as a guest?
Oh, good
I
questions.
imagine
Good questions.
in the future, I'm gonna have to keep my finger on the pulse on esports. I'm still gonna be working in an esports related venture. In terms of coming on the show as a guest, I imagine that I'm gonna be in that sort of corporate world of having to get permission. I think
So
there'll
we can't
be.
talk about Riot, and we can't. I'm trying to think of the
Well,
things we're not going to do.
here's the thing as well. And look, I'll actually say this because other people never do, and that is that like the unfiltered, which was like today. I'm having a little bit of fun on Twitter because obviously the morons crawled out the woodwork. This is my last appearance on Unfiltered, so I wanted to keep it unfiltered. I think the viewers and the people that have supported my work and Chris's work and Stephen's work deserve that. But ultimately, like I am going to be entering a new phase where talk like this is going to be done. It's going to have to go on hiatus because of the nature of the position that I'm going to take. So people might say, "Oh, you've gone corporate, you fucking sold out, you're a little bitch, you're a hypocrite." Whatever people want to say, I'm sure there'll actually be some truth to those criticisms. But ultimately, I'm in my 30s. I've done this for a long time. I've tried to be a lone voice of sanity in a very fucking insane industry, and this is my time to get paid. This is my time to move on to something that's going to be more nourishing and satisfying to me on a career basis. And I think the prospect of coming back on the show, yeah, but it'll be with a caveat that I'll probably be told to steer away from certain things and not say something. And that's just what happened.
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
Yeah, it's burnt.
Of what's going to happen. So I wish that wasn't a reality. I wish we existed in a reality where people's opinions were respected, however controversial, however edgy they were. People could debate the opinions, not debate the person, not attach this complete myth of the professionalism discussion where if you say something somebody doesn't like, that immediately makes you unprofessional, not turning up for work and working your hardest and excelling in your role. But unfortunately, this is the society we exist within, and I'll have to start conforming to rules that I've never wanted to conform to in my life, perhaps temporarily, perhaps ongoing. I guess it depends how the job goes. But that's just being real about it, and people will notice the difference and will notice a change, and it's a change that I'll have to make, but it won't be under duress. It'll probably be welcome to get away from it. Like for example, once I start this job, the Twitter arguments, I mean, that's all got to go. That's going to end.
So, are you going to be in control of your Twitter account when you get this?
I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, it's been discussed. Maybe I'm not. That's honestly true. But when I interviewed with, it's quite interesting. So when I interviewed with ESPN, ESPN made the point, and it was an informal interview. It wasn't a formal interview. I must stress that it was just a phone interview. And I interviewed with ESPN, and they were like, "Look, we've got grave concerns over your Twitter." And I was like, "Well, why is that?" And they're like, "Well, you say these things," and they reeled off some examples. And I was like, okay, yeah, I suppose that is
reeled off the last
like,
3 freaking years.
We're a Disney-owned company. We certainly don't have anyone projecting that image. So there would be a chance that we would probably put an intern on your Twitter for a while. And I was kind of like, well, I don't really want to do that. I don't think just because you pay the bills, you get to dictate how I behave on Twitter. But ultimately, for the right price, yeah, sure, tell me what to do. Fucking dress me up.
Bend over, right?
Like, I don't know what the fuck, right? You know what I mean? For the right money and the right opportunity and a chance to be affiliated with something that I believe can be really successful and help my career, obviously you've got to compromise. You've got to compromise. But where it gets interesting is, so ESPN lectured me at great fucking length about how important it was that I couldn't work for them if my Twitter feed was bad. Well, they recently published an article by someone who you may remember as Go Sick Boy, or you maybe remember him as Anne Prag. And this is somebody that pretended to be a woman on the internet for a prolonged period of time, actually used that fake alias to solicit nudes from female players and female personalities in the scene. And ESPN have had no problem giving him a space to publish his work or a byline. So I think either that's a case if they're not doing their homework or their priorities are a little bit skewed. Because certainly I wouldn't want to give a platform that big to somebody that's engaged in deplorable behavior like that. So it just goes to show every time I've gone for a job interview, everyone's like, we love your work. We love what you do. There's no denying you're good at what you do. We think you're a great personality, but your social media presence is a nightmare. It's a disaster. And I'm like, I just don't get what's so bad about tweeting out. Like, if someone attacks me, I don't get what's bad about me attacking them back on a level playing field. I never will understand that, but that's how the corporate world works. And unfortunately, I'm soon to be assimilated. Well, not unfortunately, because I'm quite looking forward to it. But the old Richard Lewis is going to be assimilated into that corporate world. It's just that simple.
Powering down, man. Powering down. All right, thanks for the question, buddy.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Take care, dude.
What's your last unfiltered statement, Richard?
Oh yeah.
My last unfiltered statement. I love the show. It's been a labor of love sometimes. I wish the community were a bit more fucking mature in how they handle it. Like, don't tune into a fucking show called Unfiltered if you don't want to hear unfiltered opinions. But it's been great for my career. It's played a huge part in getting to where I am today, and I certainly hope whoever comes on the show and replaces me realizes what a fantastic opportunity it is to work with the likes of Chris and Stephen, and obviously reach the people who are normal and not idiots, of which there are many that do watch this show, and I would certainly rank you among them. So thanks very much for asking.
All right, thanks, man. Take care, guys.
All right, thanks, buddy. Yep. All right, well, let's kind of round out the show here, and
I'm really disappointed because I was hoping this last episode was just going to be me ranting about the StarCraft community and all the fake people in there, and I'm never going to get the chance now. So
have you not done that already? I thought you've already done that.
Fuck no. Okay, so I just
okay. This is I'll give you. Okay.
Right. Cats came out in the aftermath of the Duncan appearance, and we were talking about StarCraft swirling down the toilet, and he was like saying, it's you people who say dead game and all of these memes that are killing StarCraft, and we should all work together and be positive to grow the community. This guy was an absolute massive piece of shit. This guy was like literally doing every dirty trick in the book he could to leverage his position, leverage Root, pushing people like myself out of the scene when I first came into it because he thought he was a bigger name than me.
Wait, how did that happen? Yeah,
well, yeah, and hey, look, I know you've got to work how to work in relationship with this guy. But anyway,
I was kicked off of Root.
Yeah, I know.
Because of really dumb reasons. So I have every reason in the world to hate Cats. So I'm not here to defend him. I'm not on Root. I have no affiliation with the team, but I'm curious how you think that he kicked you out of the scene or pushed you out of the scene.
He tried to push me out of the scene when I came in as a journalist. He was one of the few people who, when we got into the Land of Broken Promises thing, he was one of the most vocal, beating the drum about it. When I was criticizing Root for doing things such as kicking you, when I wrote a piece in defense of you, he went absolutely fucking ham about it and unleashed the dogs of war. In fact, there was a chick called Sunset who accused me of sexually harassing her. I don't even know how you do that over Twitter. And she blocked me immediately and would then just make all these weird passive
Where
aggressive
I've
tweets.
never in my life, as someone that knows Sunset and Cats, I've never heard of Sunset saying you sexually harassed her.
Yeah,
Like,
stalked her and sexually harassed her and all sorts of other crazy shit. And
When was this? Holy
when she went
smokes.
over, when she went over and walked it on Gamers, she was repeating the same thing. It was another one of the caveats in the background about why maybe I couldn't work on Gamers in the first instance, because she'd said all this crazy heinous shit about me. She wrote numerous blogs about me. I still don't really know who she is or what she does. Yet this is all the shit that she said about me. So anyway, and Katz obviously didn't just endorse that. It was coordinated. It was designed, so he wasn't interested in making StarCraft a better place when people were out there breaking promises, ripping off consumers, putting in false Kickstarters. He actually endorsed all of that. And is also...
what are you talking about? Wait, what? We haven't even gotten... Okay, here's what it sounds like happened. I'm pretty sure that did you put Katz's fundraiser on the Broken Promises list?
It was on there. It was on there. The whole house. It was definitely on there.
I think Katz probably said.
That was a separate article.
Katz probably came into that thread and defended his thing, which whether he's right or wrong, I would expect him to do. And then you misconstrue that as him trying to push you out of the industry?
No. You can go back and look at his tweets from that fucking time period where he was like basically saying, this guy's not a fucking journalist, you can't listen to him, what the fuck does he know? He's just trying to piggyback on the success of StarCraft, which obviously wasn't true. I came into StarCraft late when everyone was fucking already trying to, I love Brood War me, is that the one with the Zergs? Just trying to get some of that fucking sick StarCraft money, right? So, and I didn't do that. This guy did fucking go out and basically was trying to push me out. A lot of people did. It wasn't just him. There was a very coordinated effort, from guys like the people over at Evil Geniuses and Artosis, and I think even Total Biscuit John might have had said something about it at the time, saying I was being a little bit hysterical. I don't fucking mind. Me and John squashed that beef a long fucking time ago. But there was a lot of fucking pressure on me to push me out the fucking scene, and Katz was fucking loving every second of that. Every time I wrote a story about Root, he would come out and be like, "Oh, it's Mr. Journalist guy making shit up again." He refused.
Wait, so you're saying that every single time you wrote...
I will finish the sentence. I will finish the sentence. He refused. He refused to even refer to me by name in an op-ed that he published on the Root website because I was so fucking beneath him. So let's not pretend this guy was welcoming people with open arms. And again, when you attack journalists who are trying to expose wrongdoing, you are tacitly endorsing that wrongdoing. You may know. I'm
just to get this straight. You're saying that the guy who you accused of being a scammer and a rip-offer and somebody destroying the scene came out and said negative things about you? That's the accusation? I'm just making sure.
I never said that. I said that he had failed to. I said he failed to deliver promises. I said I found the idea of getting the community to fund a team house unpalatable. This is pretty much all I said. I said that he was a hypocrite because he kicked you over alleged racist statements, and yet when it came to his Smite team, he allowed those guys to run amok, and they were involved in multiple racist incidents.
I remember that.
Yeah, but Jerby in particular was caught saying that I can't tell the difference between all Asian people, all yellow people, I think he might have said. So it was okay for the team that he was hoping was going to be spearheading the most popular new esport. It was okay for them to be racist, but not for you. So again, I pointed out the hypocrisy.
Wait, when? Okay. I feel like sources or whatever have been really good for this because I feel like a lot of this is being blown out. When did Katz say something about yellow people?
No, Katz didn't. Jerby did.
Jerby did. One of the Smite players. I kind of remember that time. That was a while ago.
So
that's
what I mean. So let's, again, the idea that he's like some guy that's been like, out there, like welcoming people in the scene and wants to clean it up, wants to make it a better place. He's just another guy who wanted to preserve the fucking status quo. And then what he said on this stream that he did, he was like, you're the reason Tastosis left. And he was really pained and fake emotion and all of that shit. He was saying that like people saying dead game is the reason Tastosis left. No, the reason Tastosis left is because the money fucking wasn't coming in at the same level it was. And let's not pretend.
I don't think
for one, they haven't left.
Let's not pretend.
For one, they haven't left.
Well, it's Katz's words, not mine.
Okay.
Katz's
words. I don't think Katz blamed you for Tastosis leaving.
No. I'm not saying that. You're really not following the conversation. He blamed people saying dead game and memes for them leaving. That's what he did.
Okay, but you're trying to make it sound like since you were one of those people that Katz is blaming you for...
I'm not saying that. You're
conflating two things.
So what I'm saying is, The reason that Tastosis left was just simply financially based. These guys have done all sorts of shady shit behind the scenes. Again, not to help StarCraft. They've hindered the career of other casters quite deliberately. Those casters know who they are, and they're too afraid to speak up about it, but they were getting fucked over. They also like to believe they have some little mafia control hold over Korea, and they talk very openly about it, and they care so much about StarCraft that they almost didn't do a BlizzCon because they were in an argument over whether or not they got business class seats on a flight. So fuck those guys. These guys are fakers, liars, and the community fall for it every fucking time. And since I'm very unlikely to have anything more to do with fucking StarCraft, I think it's about fair that we set the fucking record straight about these people and their motivations. It's the same old shit. They've got a limited skill set. They want to fucking basically take advantage of the last swirls of the StarCraft dream before it goes down the toilet. And then don't worry, they'll jump on whatever Blizzard say, hey, we've got a good fit for you here. They'll go and do that. Right, but don't get sucked into them posturing about how much they care about the fucking scene and how much they grow it. Yeah, they've done some good stuff, but they've also done a bunch of fucking bad stuff. And the bad stuff they've done has negatively impacted on the growth of StarCraft. Absolute fact, unequivocal. So there you go. Just wanted to clear that up.
Sure. As somebody who knows more about everything that Cats in particular, and probably the other people who've been involved in Free StarCraft 2 than Richard Lewis, I completely and totally disagree with 99% of what he said. But I mean, like, if we don't source anything, then I mean, this whole conversation is just kind of hearsay.
I did source it.
Well, he did source a lot of it.
Source what?
I mean, just
where are the tweets of Sunset saying that you?
Oh, I don't know about Sunset part. Yeah, that Sunset, not that
where's
not
like
that part.
the evidence that Cats has
I
said
didn't say she tweeted it out. She tweeted out that I was stalking her. She said it privately to people to prevent
I mean, I really want to see
Sunset
because the context is really important for a lot of these things. Like,
well, no, what you're saying is you think I'm a liar, which is fine.
I don't think you're lying. No, I don't think you're lying. I think you're engaging in like half truths. Like, I really want to see the context of a lot of these things. Like, I know a lot about what Katz has done behind the scenes, and for the most part, like, Katz has been one of the better people in StarCraft 2. Like, there has been a couple things like personally that irked me a little bit. But in terms of like being an overall like a hugely negative detriment to the scene or a negative impact to the scene, a detriment to the scene, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that.
Didn't use the words hugely detrimental, but his words on that stream were that we need to be more positive, we need to stop with the dead game meme, and we need to be more welcoming of people trying to come into StarCraft. Well, he wasn't welcoming of new people coming into StarCraft. That makes it.
But like again, you just did like a really big like half truth there. Like, Katz is pretty welcoming to everybody that's been in StarCraft. Now, has he
generally
been
yes
welcoming to you? Who accused him of being a snake in the grass and being like one of the worst people in esports and scamming? I mean, probably not that welcoming. I mean,
you know what, Steven? You're gonna have to source that because I didn't say any of those things. So what you're doing now is lying. You see.
Well, so I think both of you guys. Okay. So here's the thing. Like, Steven, generally, Cats for the community, StarCraft community, and trying to welcome people and picking up players. I mean, Root's always been like that team that people, develop in, and then they jump to some bigger team. Okay, like, so generally, a lot of things that Cats has done has definitely been positive for the StarCraft 2 community, no question. Now, with Richard, he wrote an article that were pointing out things that, he sourced them in articles that, were true at the moment, at the time, and some of it had to do with the whole crowdfunding. I believe that's what it kind of revolved around. And then a lot of the promises that were made or some of the milestones and things like that were promised. And, that was just during the time, the whole broken promises, right? And that was one of the things that was happening. So, yeah, y'all's first interaction was definitely in the context of, attacking him for something, and that's like
he got involved when I was talking about other shit like the EG stuff. He went out and battered for Pizza GG and all of that gibberish. He didn't have to attack me to do it, but he did, and he's never missed an opportunity. So again, he's a hypocrite. That's my point. That these people, he wasn't out there using his position as the supposed nice guy of StarCraft to hold people accountable for breaking promises for people that paid money to deliver on these promises. I had to do that, and I was made a pariah for it for the longest period of time. Fortunately, the community that time embraced it. They're doing it less now because obviously they're massively insecure that the game's going to die, which it is, and because of that, they're like, oh, they're all panicking. So, and we've got to shut out the facts. La, 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 this isn't happening. My ladder position matters. La, 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 la. Like that's what's happening right now with the community. So they're getting sucked into it all again. I'm advising extreme caution about trusting any of these people because you're not privy to the same level of information I am about these people. You don't know how these people behave behind closed doors. You don't know what kind of game they run. in the background. And trust me, they run a lot of fucking game, and they say one thing, and their actions do another. So that's just the fucking reality of it. So, you know, if you want to believe that it's like, you know, these guys are just so positive and we should all support them. Again, they're just milking you for more cash before the fucking lights get turned out. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, this topic. Well, I mean, this section is your last topics, you know, for the shows. All right. Anything else you want to bring up? I mean, this is literally the last moments of Unfiltered Richard.
I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff, you know, like, well, the bottom line is, like, just to the StarCraft community in general, there isn't one community that has been took advantage of more than I've worked with in esports or gaming. I have never seen a bigger collection of sort of like, you know, I don't know what to call them, but like when it comes to like leveraging goodwill. When it comes to leveraging goodwill, I've never seen a community more exploited and given so little in return, and treated with such disdain.
Like, what do you mean? Like, I mean, give me an example of that, because, you know, obviously I'm a product of that community, right? And I mean, a lot of where I am now would not have been, you know, that wouldn't have happened without goodwill in that community. So, like, what do you mean by that? Are you just talking about casters, or are you talking about?
Talking about everything. I'm talking about every fucking failed Kickstarter. I'm talking about organizations running fucking, you know, advertising campaigns where they take the money up front and then they.
Oh, you're talking about just like from the community itself. You mean from the community itself?
I'm talking about barefaced lies and the presentation of personas where it's like, ha ha ha, we are nice people, and then behind the scenes they're just some of the most treacherous, backstabbing, foul people to work with. So insecure in their own position that they would fuck good, hardworking talent out of job prospects and opportunities. We started the show, well, very early on in the show, we started talking about rates and whether or not there was competition between casters. Right. Never has it been so vicious in StarCraft. Never have people actually held such fucking dominion because of their status. Tastosis absolutely abused their position as the top names in StarCraft talent for a long, long time, and you had to basically pay fealty if you wanted to get anywhere as a fucking caster,
so let's
in Korea.
Okay,
and that's undeniably true, and everyone knows what I'm saying in the business knows what I'm saying is true.
Okay, so let's just talk about a little bit more about that. I mean, isn't that just market though? Right? I mean, it's the same thing here where it's just
there's a market for me right now. There's a market for Thorin right now.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking anyone out of jobs. I've just talked about how actively I'm not. I in fact made the point just recently with MLG, if there was any way we could get Blue, who's a young and upcoming caster who's just signed the ESL, get him to the major.
But how is how are they fucking them out of jobs when the events want them over everybody?
No. Again, what they're saying is we won't work with certain people. So if you want us, you can't hire them. That's different.
Well, for a while they were only working with each other. So I mean, like. Right? Yeah, I mean, they were. But
I'm talking about as events have grown and other talent hires were in, especially in Korea. There'll be people who'll come forward in a year or two. Like I said, when StarCraft's the final nails in the coffin, there'll be a bunch of fucking stories come out about it, and it'll be Richard Lewis was right again. Like, I don't want to throw anyone under the fucking bus. I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people have been fucking absolutely wrecked by some of the biggest names in StarCraft who have just literally fucking mined it for profit. Right? That's it. And people can fucking say, oh, you know, you had nothing to do with our community. Out of the people that matter in StarCraft, the people that actually make a talent contribution, they all fucking respect me and what I do. So I'm all right. I don't give a fuck if popular opinion's not with me, because the people who matter actually know what I'm saying is right. So I don't give a fuck. But the bottom line on this is, if the StarCraft community is going to go back to the old ways and get fucking roped in again, then you're going to get, trust me, you're going to get fleeced one big time, right? There's going to be another big fleecing coming, another wave of fleecing before this game dies. And I'm just telling people, watch out, because it's coming. And when it comes, don't be fucking surprised when it's like, oh, but 2 years later, StarCraft doesn't exist anymore, and I'm still waiting for that video they promised they make. Yeah, good for you guys. You'll have done it to yourself. No community's been fucked over as much, so you should all be wise to it by now.
Well, I think the community right now is a totally different environment than before. I think for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be quite like that anymore. Just from the standpoint of Blizzard plus a lot of the people that are in the community, whether they've changed or whatnot. But, you know, It's like
You know,
cool.
and
I
all
mean,
this,
it's
and all
warning.
this. Hey, let's all make a pinky promise, a pinky swear, not to say dead game, and the game will suddenly become popular. I
It's
mean,
not well.
seriously,
It's never gonna become
is
super popular again.
is
Okay,
that
let's
really
just.
the best that we can
It's
come up with? These incredible minds that have like shaped StarCraft and have contributed so much. Their solution is pinky promise, don't say dead game. That's it. Okay, well, I'm fucking
Well,
sold. These people know what I'm talking about.
but I mean, the thing is dead game is I don't it's obviously a meme at this point, but StarCraft will never be completely dead. I mean, that's just I'm telling you, as long as Mike Morhaime is there, this StarCraft will never be completely dead. And
Yeah, it's not going to be completely dead. It's just going to be
it's not going to grow.
Relevant
it might not grow.
It's going to be largely relevant within esports. That's the sad reality. And I say that as somebody that, even though I've never played StarCraft, I used to love working in the community. I used to love working in the scene. I used to love meeting the people, interviewing the players, making a contribution that way. I got my first hosting gig, I think, in a StarCraft event. Yeah. So I've always had a lot of love for the community, but just lately, like, these guys are fucking slipping. It's slipping Jimmy. Like, these guys have fucking gone back to their fucking old ways of just being sucked in by bullshit. And they can't even take the fucking reality that their game is swirling down the toilet and that maybe the WCS changes are bad or they came too late. They've become so fragile because they understand the reality. They can't accept hearing the reality. And the minute that happens, the minute you let your guard down, that's when these people who whisper about how they have the solutions and support my stream and support this and say this and let's pretend the game isn't dead so I can maybe pull in a few more sponsors, that's when they get taken advantage of. Meanwhile, people who tell it straight, like Thorin, yeah, y'all attacking him and saying that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I mean, okay, so
he got Thorin, who made like 400 pieces of StarCraft content, was crying that people wouldn't give him interviews. I don't understand.
No,
that.
he said you did that thing.
I'm not misconstruing, dog. I read the tweet. Yeah, he was saying that when I was new in StarCraft, no one gave me any kind of. That's bullshit, dude.
That isn't bullshit. That is exactly how it went down.
100% bullshit. Who said no to Thorin? What, he had access to like everyone. He put how much StarCraft content?
Well, he might not have had access to everybody.
So I guess you were there, Stephen. I guess you were.
I mean, he's
floating like some.
I was there when Thorin made that tweet bragging about how he made like 400. How you can't have your cake and eat it too? What, did you make a ton of really good StarCraft content involving almost every community figure, or did you get shunned by community figures? Like, you can't have it both ways.
And again, you're being intellectually dishonest. I know when I first started in StarCraft, I struggled to get interviews as well. People didn't want to do interviews with me. People were like, "Who the fuck are you?" And then after I started writing about unpopular things and saying, "Yeah, maybe we shouldn't support Papa John's. Maybe that's not a good company to support." Yeah. When I started writing stuff like that, I got blacklisted. But I got blacklisted by Team Liquid. I got blacklisted by EG. So, again, I know these things happened. You obviously know more about it than me and Duncan, who were doing that job.
I mean, your whole point on not supporting Papa John's was that because the CEO had a particular position on like a political issue that we should shun them as a sponsor from esports. I mean, like I feel like all of these examples are like really kind of being to make a point.
No, you're right, and I think had you been around when apartheid was a thing, I think you probably
oh my god
that as well, right? Like, I mean, come on, what the fuck? Like, what if you have a particular something?
I'm curious. What's some example of some good figures in StarCraft 2 that you think were good for the game? I'm curious.
Good for the game?
Sure.
Stefano, inarguably. In Control, inarguably. And here's the thing. Jeff was in a difficult position because EG was, EG was blacklisting me, but Jeff never really sort of endorsed that. Jeff was always like, I'd like to do interviews with you. I think you're a cool guy. So Jeff's a great guy. I think hugely entertaining. I'd say the same about you. I think you were like one of the first professional streamers. You did a lot of positive stuff.
Besides me, I mean, what about Stefano and the 14-year-old girl thing? What about Stefano and the?
I think it's unfortunate that he said something while somebody else was streaming and got caught out for it. And look, and again, it's not all bad. Obviously, Tastosis, they were the sort of benchmark for casting duos. Do we have an Anderson Semler if a Tastosis doesn't exist? Probably not, right? So I can see the good and the bad. But the point is, and obviously what Total Biscuit did, I think unprecedented in the space, was one of the first people that really pushed for fucking transparency, was always transparent in everything he did. And yeah, he was vocal and opinionated, as is his right to be. And we didn't always agree and get along with it. But fuck, I respect his opinion. And I respect what he did. He put his money where his mouth is. He didn't need to be involved in esports, let alone StarCraft. And yet he put his fucking money into it.
So you don't think there's any valid like opinion on the side that like maybe relentless negativity isn't necessarily the way to go forward for a game. Like,
No,
I agree that it would
just
be
let me
nice.
clarify, because now I'm being accused of endorsing statutory rape. Saying that you've had sex with somebody, saying that you've had
Nobody's
sex with somebody on a
endorsing
stream isn't the same as actually having sex. I'll prove it. I just fucked Jennifer Aniston. Didn't happen. There you go. Okay, point proven. Again, morons. Try and keep up. Yeah.
It's not, like the problem is a lot like. I feel like you're taking like little quips and quirks, and then you're like making these hugely absurd generalizations. So like, I don't think that it's
I
necessarily.
can't think of anyone else who's ever done that, Stephen.
I feel like for the StarCraft community, I don't think that it's necessarily a negative thing to not want people to constantly and relentlessly shit on your game. I think that that's an okay feeling. Like, do we need to be honest about like where the state of StarCraft is at? Yeah, sure, but that doesn't mean that it has to be a relentless stream of shitting on the game. I think that that's like the line that people were trying to draw. Do you disagree with that?
Look. I think people are entitled to speak openly about the state of the game and what they think it's in. And I don't think.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question. Do you think
question.
do you think that it's okay to maybe say that it's not a good thing for the game to have people relentlessly shitting on it constantly? Do you think that?
What's
it's okay
about
to
one of the
say,
things
"I
like
think
it's when you've said it once, like I guess what he's trying to say is like, is it actually good to just
like,
continue
the
saying
problem.
the same thing over and over again?
Like, that's the problem. Like, there were a few
Yeah.
people, like, for the most part, like, I'm making a bit of an assumption here, but I think for the most part, most of the StarCraft Reddit would say that, like, it was an okay thing when I tried to reveal a lot of the problems with StarCraft, and then a lot of the people that hopped onto that, it was an okay thing.
It wasn't
What a lot of
okay. It
people
was a
don't
great
like-
thing. It was a great
Yeah,
thing
but a
when you
lot of
first
people
talked about
don't
it.
like it when people constantly come and just say like dead game, dead game, dead game, or like when Thorin went on his huge fucking Twitter escapade shitting on every single person in the StarCraft community, and then like the constant streams of like dead game, dead game, dead game. Don't you think it's okay for people to be of the opinion that maybe something like that really doesn't contribute anything positive whatsoever?
I think you can say
Like-
that. I think when you peddle that it's the answer to fixing the problems, I think that's retarded.
Okay, yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that
That's-
you're making
that's-
the argument that you're giving. You're making it sound like every single person that was saying, "Hey, can we cut it out with the massive dead game spam?" You're making it sound like every single one of those people was just a disingenuous con man looking to milk the game for some money. Like, that's the impression that I got at
It's
least. when you
not
said that.
entirely wrong. Not entirely wrong.
Wow.
Like, what does it matter? What does
Okay.
it matter if people who play the fucking game want to say it's a dead game? What does it matter if actually the fan base of StarCraft is
We
self-aware
just
enough?
literally like an hour ago, we just said that Nade Shot moving over to the MLG platform was enough to tank almost the entire game of Call of Duty because he brought everyone else with him. You don't think
Yeah.
that community members might be a little bit influential when it comes to how the community views itself? Like, I mean, we both, or do you disagree with that?
I do. I think Nade Shot's one of the most influential esports figures of all time. I think a bunch
Okay, so
of
then you
friends
agree
on a
that,
forum
like,
don't have the
so
same
you-
pull.
Okay, but like large community figures do, right? So when you get large community people from other communities, i.e. Thorin on Twitter, shitting on every single person in a community, you don't think that it might be reasonable that some people would be of the opinion that that kind of a thing is a negative thing for that community? Like,
No, again, I don't think Thorin makes any fucking difference, as evidenced by the reaction. It's not like anyone listened to what he had to say, which is part of the problem.
what did he have to say that was constructive? All I saw was him saying that pretty much every single person involved in StarCraft 2 was a huge piece of shit. People that I personally would stake my reputation on, like Nathanius or Rotterdam. Like, have they had a few problems in the past? Like,
I didn't see what Duncan said about Nathanius. I don't know that, and
Does anybody want to
I like
linking-
Nathanius.
Does anybody want to link specific tweets? I'm not going to go back and dig through, but like it was pretty much at every single StarCraft person. That's why the community had such a huge, they were such a huge uproar. It's not like Thorin just tweeted like, "Hey, I think that some people in StarCraft
Well,
are really good." It
actually,
was like
again,
specific.
Well, it was more.
Chronology's a little off because it was just about what he said on the show to begin with.
No, it what?
No, it
that's
started with the
absolutely
tweets.
not
It
true.
started with the
started
tweets, Rich.
Twitter, for
That-
sure.
That's
why
the only
people
reason the
were
topic made the show.
The Reddit threads that cropped up were not about
Yeah,
his
well,
Twitter. They were about his
the
appearance on
the reason the topic was even on the show is because of the tweets. So there was, it was about the Steven. It started with a tweet about Steven's article, just basically saying it was good, and then little comments happened from there, and then it just turned out to basically SC2 community versus Thorin, and everybody chiming in, and that kind of started.
People
But,
to the tweets now, so I can debate
Yeah.
the individual merits of the
yeah,
tweets.
I don't
So it's-
remember him attacking Nathanius and Rotterdam like personally or anything like that.
Oh,
but
hang
but,
on,
but
no,
definitely
hang on,
arguing,
hang on.
definitely
No,
arguing
I remember
about
this.
it.
I remember this now, right? So yeah, right. Nathanius, I believe, called an author of an article a shitter.
Yeah, so Nathaniel made a mistake here. It was a big fuck up, but it was pretty fucking obvious why that fuck up occurred, and that was ESPN's fault 100%. ESPN did a disgustingly fucking clickbait fucking tweet.
Oh,
And
yeah.
And if fucking
Okay,
Thorin had any fucking integrity, he would have called ESPN out on that instead of fucking Nathaniel.
I remember.
He definitely does call out ESPN.
That's
right,
what
okay,
it was.
good. That's fine, because ESPN fucked the author of that article hardcore with that fucking tagline. Like, that was
absolutely.
100%. Did Nathaniel fuck up a little bit in that tweet? Oh yeah, he definitely did. And later he
because he called the guy who wrote the article a shitter, and then he admitted he hadn't even read the article.
Sure, he did.
Yeah,
But
okay,
that
I remember that.
100% on or like 99% on ESPN for that horrible fucking tweet that they did.
Absolutely. So who are we criticizing here? ESPN, right? So it's not Duncan's fault.
Well,
I'm not saying it's his fault, but this is like part of
I didn't see any tweets where he called Nathaniel Old Boys Club. I think that would be patently absurd, and I would definitely disagree if Duncan did say that. But like at the end of the day, I mean, fuck, like he's right to call him out for that. Journalists get a lot of fucking shit, and sometimes I say I don't pick my headlines. And I'm a senior writer, and I don't get to pick the headline that it uses. And obviously, sometimes editors might want a more enticing headline.
Clickbait is their job, is to make
exactly.
clickbait.
We've got to generate clicks. People
But
use clickbait like it's exclusively a bad thing, and that people don't even know how to quantify clickbait. Because again, everyone's an expert on journalism, except when it comes to actually doing journalism. When it's talking about journalism, everyone knows about it. It's actually going out there and doing it. No one knows what the fuck.
Well, it wasn't the journalism aspect. It wasn't the journalistic part of it. It was the marketing part of it that was the issue.
Nathaniel called the author a shitter, so that's a problem. You can't go doing that. Why? Right? Again, think about this, right? So if we're talking about how it's wrong for like CEOs and people of influence to go off and like it's wrong for Gabe Newell to call fucking Too Good an ass, why is it okay for a prominent caster then to call a journalist a fucking shitter just for doing his job? Why is that okay?
Are we making the comparison right now of Gabe Newell, the CEO of fucking Valve, coming out and making it?
Listen, you can laugh over what I'm saying all you want.
No, I mean, like, when the
comparison... You can keep...
How about we back up?
Doing it, but here's the reality. You always go from fucking 0 to 100. Every analogy you make, you say like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's bad that he did that because what if he murdered someone? And then, and you go immediately to fucking 100 to make your point. You use hyperbole and extremes to make your points all of the time. So what you're saying is Gabe Newell, a public figure, can't be compared to a lesser public figure. So you can't, again, you're trying to have your cake and eat it. You do this all the time when you debate.
Oh boy, now we're gonna get into the
Oh
boy, here we go. Here we go.
Of a multi-hundred-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar company. Do you think the CEO of a multi-whatever-million-dollar company should be a little bit more diligent when he makes public statements concerning his specific talent than a caster talking about like an article for like esports? Yeah, I think that there's a bit of a difference.
Let's follow your logic. Okay. What you're saying is a public figure of influence criticizing somebody in a way that could damage their job or could be perceived as unprofessional. It shouldn't be happening, right? Agreed? That's the essence of the Gabe Newell thing. Yes? Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, sure.
Fair summary. Okay, now we apply it to Nathaniel. Exact same thing applies. So,
yep.
I
never defended Nathaniel's action.
No,
you definitely said it was wrong.
Gabe Newell's. What I'm saying is you're unwilling to criticize Nathaniel's actions.
I'm not. I said Nathaniel.
No, he said he did it wrong. He said he did it wrong. He said he made it wrong.
I said he made a mistake. Yeah.
But here you're saying it's not comparable. And it clearly is. Now, what I'm saying is...
I just don't understand the comparison. I'm not defending Nathaniel. I never said that Nathaniel was right in his criticism of...
Here's the comparison. That, right, young journalists, people who are out there trying to get their content out there, get it noticed, what always happens is that, first of all, the guilty always criticize it first. The people who know that there's at least a grain of truth to it, they always come out and shit on it. Then you get prominent figures, shit on it, players,
What are we even talking about right now? Yeah. What are we talking about in reference to right now? Always come out and shut on it. What are we...
Nathaniel did that and Duncan criticised it, and then people criticised Duncan for shitting on Nathaniel.
Wait, why do you think Nathanius? First of all, people didn't shit on Duncan for criticizing Nathanius. They shitted on Duncan for shitting on the entire StarCraft 2 community because he called it a ton of different people.
Which you listed an example, which is why we have the tweet in front of us.
Okay, but that was just one example. That was just one example. Okay, I'm not defending what Nathanius did. Okay, I'm not defending what Nathanius did. We're there, right? I think Nathanius.
Absolutely.
Okay? So why do you think Nathanius tweeted what he tweeted? Because I don't think you understand this. Why do you think Nathanius made the tweet? Because there's an ounce of truth to it, and he was scared because he doesn't want anyone to say anything negative about StarCraft, or what? Why do you think Nathanius? Okay, you're wrong. The reason why Nathanius tweeted what he tweeted was because ESPN included a tagline that really didn't even was even part of the article that made it sound like the article was essentially saying
he called the author a shitter. He called the author a shitter. There's no need to do that.
He did.
Because he thought he was the person that wrote the tagline.
Yeah, because
that's
he completely he fucked up and he assumed that the clickbaity autistic shit that ESPN tweeted had anything to do with the article, which was his mistake because ESPN did a hack job on that tweet, right? You want to talk about fucking journalism or whatever? Like, this is fucking...
That's marketing. That's not even journalism. That's fucking marketing.
It's not marketing. It's bad. It's deplorable job.
Yes, but I'm just saying
Nathanius
it's not journalism.
Nathanius fucked up, okay? I'm still saying Nathanius fucked up. But to try to make this into like, well, Nathanius tweeted this thing because he's scared that StarCraft is dead, blah, 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 blah. No, of course not. He didn't tweet it because of all the whatever other bullshit like you think he's thinking. He tweeted it because the article looked really fucking bad from the ESPN tweet. End of story. I almost tweeted the same thing.
It was also an article. It was also an article that was critical of StarCraft and StarCraft's future. Yeah,
but after reading it afterwards, people thought that the article was fine. Most people thought the article was fine after.
Imagine if ESPN had put out a positive article saying, "Hey, it's the second coming of StarCraft. It's going to be big again," and they used some bullshit clickbaity title like "The Second Coming of StarCraft," and it was the same author. Would any of you come out and say, "Oh my God, what a clickbait tweet"?
Wait, so you think that people that work in the industry are going to be a little bit more defensive about an article that is harshly critical of their industry than one that praises it? No way. You really think so? No, wait, hold on.
StarCraft is not the esports industry. StarCraft is a
It's not about being the esports industry. I'm just saying that if I would have put out an article right now that said Richard Lewis is a huge piece of shit and he raped 17 women, okay? Let's say I put that article out.
Again, you've gone to hyperbole and extreme. I thought we couldn't do that. I thought we couldn't do that, Steve. I thought we had to stay within the realms of reality.
Before you were trying to say no, stop. Okay. I'm not going to say that Gabe Newell has the same level of responsibility to a community as Nathanius does, because being the CEO of a company versus being talent like that cast for the fucking game are two totally different things. Okay. Right now, the comparison I'm making is that if I were to put in an article that's negative about something versus the article that's positive about something, it's much more likely that if it's a negative article, if the information is wrong, that you're going to have a much more adverse reaction to the negative article than the positive article. So
what was the information in that article wrong?
It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is if I were to make an article saying something like, oh, Richard Lewis has been the best person, and I even heard that he contributed $5,000 to charity, blah, 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 it's highly unlikely that you're going to get on Twitter and start being like, this is absolutely
but that would be about me specifically as a person.
Okay, but I'm saying that if it was factually incorrect, you probably wouldn't get on Twitter and be like, this is absolutely wrong. Right. I did not donate $5,000.
The article wasn't about Nathanius. It was about StarCraft.
Okay, but if it's a negative thing pertaining to the industry that you work in and it's wrong, there's a much higher chance that the person is going to.
He didn't even read the article and admitted that.
He didn't. But did you see the?
So how did he know it's wrong?
Steven, I already told you. I told you that he fucked up in the response. But the tweet from the can somebody link ESPN Twitter? The tweet from ESPN literally said like, "Who is going to replace Flash as the next StarCraft talent?"
Nobody.
Nobody.
And it was like the worst fucking clickbaity tweet, and it made it sound like, "Oh, this game is 100% fucking dead. It's the worst fucking thing." Obviously, people are gonna have that kind of reaction to that tweet. Anybody with like an ounce of common sense would know that a person who is working in that industry is going to have a hugely negative reaction to a tweet like that, even without reading the article.
I thought it was a perfectly good article.
The article was fine. But we're talking about the tweet, not the article. And most of the people that read it afterwards said, even Nathanius included, said that the article was fine. Nobody had a problem with the article. The problem was with the tweet.
Thank you. We've done it. We've got there. So why did they have that weird knee-jerk reaction?
Why again? When you're asking the most funny, why did a bunch of people working with StarCraft had a strange knee-jerk reaction that somebody tweeted something really strong?
Oh, one at a time. Hold on. Okay, Rich, go.
And it underlines my point exactly. So you got there for me. Thank you. And
wait. Hold on.
It's expected. Every community will respond the same. If you tweet something.
Hold on, Steven. Hold on.
The rhetorical point is that It was critical of StarCraft, so obviously, unleash the dogs of war. We've all got to come out and defend StarCraft because we're all insecure about the future of StarCraft. That's the only reason.
Pretty sure if you made a similar point about Hearthstone, CS:GO, or fucking Dota 2 or League of Legends, people would do the exact fucking
It is a
thing.
natural
This is
reaction.
common
Come
sense.
on, it's a natural reaction to. It's like your territory. Yes.
I've written things critical of CS:GO, and I can't think of where industry figures have come out and said, "No, everything's fine. Please don't take my last few months of a valid paycheck away." I've never seen that. Never seen that.
Gosh.
So,
Oh
sorry, I'm just speaking from experience.
No, but it's one of those things. No, but
probably not a serious esports title I haven't written something about.
I mean, how much critical stuff have you written about CS:GO versus StarCraft?
I only
You're
write
like real fast. You're real fast. Could you imagine if Valve?
there has to be dissenting of view too.
Or if Riot would have pulled the same thing that Valve would have pulled in terms of that whole clusterfuck that was the Shanghai Majors, I feel like you would have been writing article after article scathing Riot about that. But when Valve does it, your Twitter was completely fucking silent, except for talking about two people that brought you up in like some tangentially related way. Like, are you talking about criticizing Valve for something that the entire fucking community already agrees on? Of course there's not going to be a huge outcry in reaction to that. If you're talking about like if I were to go right now and write an article about how I think that the CS:GO time between mission packs is too long, and be like, well, look, I wrote this scathing article about Valve and nobody came out and critiqued me for it. No fucking shit. The entire fucking community agrees with it. What articles have you written about CS:GO? And actually, no, there were people that had a really bad reaction to some of the things you wrote for CS:GO. When you outed those players as fixing matches, there were a ton of people that said that what you did was wrong and that you destroyed those players' careers.
How many were credible leading industry figures in the CS:GO space?
I don't follow it close enough to know. I don't know.
There was exactly one.
Okay,
and it's stretching the definition of breaking point because it was Kelly Milky's.
Okay,
so,
Jeez, Rich.
See the point,
Rich.
right?
Oh,
okay, so
my
how
God.
many CS:GO articles have you written that have been like highly critical and scathing of like where the community is actually torn, and it's actually a controversial opinion?
I could link you to half a dozen articles almost immediately that I've written during the development of CS:GO, saying that I think we're going to have to accept it's never going to be the game that we want it to be, right? And at no point did industry figures come out and attack me. In fact, Valve read those articles and mentioned the fact that they'd read those articles to me at an event where Valve were attending and I was working. So again,
you wrote an article in the beginning of CS:GO saying that CS:GO was being.
No, I've criticized it over the course of its development. Absolutely.
No way.
Absolutely, because the way you make something better is by criticizing.
He wrote something. You wrote something super early on, Rich. I remember that article. It was super early.
The only positive opinions that ever.
I remember that article.
About Counter-Strike Source is when Go launched. Everybody hated.
No, I criticized it a lot more recently than that. In fact, go over to the Daily Dot and you can type this in because this one just popped into my head. Why we shouldn't be surprised by the vacking, which was when two relatively high-level professional players got vacked. In there is a criticism of the professional scene, saying that it's been populated by cheaters at the highest level of the game ever since Counter-Strike 1.6 and beyond, and that actually we're playing catch-up when it comes to anti-cheat measures, and this is just the way it's always going to have to be unless Valve and some other companies do something incredibly drastically different. That's like within the last 12 months, I believe.
Okay, so you wrote an article criticizing VAC.
And
you understand why these aren't controversial issues? I'm not trying to degrade your work, but I'm saying
it's
these
not a
are
controversial issue to say that there might be professional in Counter-Strike. Ask Lycan if it's not a controversial issue. But it fucking ruined Lycan in the Counter-Strike
community.
community.
What's not a controversial issue?
Clearly, the fact that there might be professional players actually cheating. So I wrote that article just recently. It's within recent memory. Right? And that's not only criticizing, that strikes to the core of what the scene is about. Did anyone in the fucking scene, at an industry level, did any top-level commentator, tournament organizer, did anyone come and attack me for that article? Absolutely not. So your point is wrong.
Well,
I have now demonstrated it to be wrong. I've demonstrated many times.
Okay, so writing a single dissenting article.
You wrote an article criticizing the VAC system after a bunch of players have been called
again,
and nobody stepped up and contradicted
you criticized Trump because you debate the same way.
What do you mean?
You debate the same way as Trump.
Oh wow, that's a button pressed. That is like, oh boy, that is.
Okay, so let's follow the timeline here. No, because this is some of the bravest stuff I've ever heard. So a bunch of players get banned for cheating. You You write an article saying, "Hey guys, there's a bunch of players cheating," and no major industry figurehead comes out and talks in contradiction to that. That's pretty great. That's quite the fucking.
Do you remember how everyone defended match fixing in StarCraft? Do you remember how everyone defended match fixing in StarCraft?
Defended match fixing in StarCraft? No.
Oh, let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt, guys. Oh, the game. They would never.
Wait, who defended
match fixing?
Defended match fixing, or didn't like the match fixing?
Which one are you talking about?
Industry figures during a time when we knew there was something suspect in StarCraft. We knew there was these weird results. We knew there was betting patterns going on. We knew there was bullshit going on in Korea. Industry figures, high-ranking industry figures, came out and were like, oh, let's not panic, guys, and let's not talk about it, and let's not debate it, and let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt. That actually happened.
Can you point me to industry figures? Can you point to industry figures?
Did that happen? Go look on the StarCraft Reddit from that time. I believe Hotbit did it. I don't know who else did.
Okay,
Hotbit springs to mind.
You're going to tell me that if I go to CSGO...
High-level industry figures, right, came out and said, let's fucking pretend that it's not happening and we don't know what's going on and blah, 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 and try to make all these excuses. No industry figure did that over the iBuyPower match fixing. Not one. Not one industry figure did that. Like, say,
first of all,
Milky's, and she doesn't count. So
nobody defended StarCraft match fixers. When people were just making accusations, then yeah, of course.
When you say that, oh, it's so brave to write an article about how players at the highest level are cheating, it is actually brave to say that. It's a hugely controversial thing to say. It triggers people like no fucking end in almost any other scene, and it got people so triggered with Lycan saying it because people didn't feel he had the credibility that, there's a good chance he'll never do anything meaningful in Counter-Strike again because people will not forget about it. Now,
the Lycan situation is so different.
How is it different? He literally came out and said people are cheating at the highest level. I said it in an article. It's exactly
He was an outsider. He made a generalized statement. He wasn't if Lycan would have said something a lot more pointed or a lot more specific in reference to something, like you writing an article after people get busted for cheating, there's a huge... You're really comparing your...
I said it was still going on, and that people were still doing it.
Okay, but again, in the context of when you wrote your article...
attacked me for breaking that story. So again, I don't know how much more I can do. Anybody can see. I'm backing my stuff up.
We're not even on the StarCraft. Nobody in the StarCraft scene defended match fixers when the evidence came out, saying that, like, hey, maybe...
They said, when the evidence came out, but there was actually movements going on. Let's not look too much into this, and let's look... Whatever happens, happens.
What movements of let's not look into this? Can you find me all of the CSGO head people that were saying, like, oh yeah, tons of cheating is going on in the CSGO scene before the VAC ban started happening? Did this ever happen?
I think industry people knew there was something going on, actually. But
okay,
again,
but you didn't.
No
but
one
all
had
these
the
people
balls.
weren't coming out.
No one
saying,
had
like,
the balls. No
so
one had the balls.
much like the same way that people even do with Flusha today, who is 100% fucking hacking. Much the same way people do to him. Why? Well, hold on. Give him the benefit of the doubt. The vacuuming hasn't happened yet. Hold on. Just chill. Of course, you're going to expect people to respond this way. They do it in every single community. StarCraft isn't unique there. And I don't think that once the match, like, how many people go on to StarCraft forums right now? Life hasn't even been formally accused of anything. And you see a lot of people saying that Life is probably involved in match fixing. This idea that everyone in StarCraft is defending match fixers is totally not true.
Yeah, and they're all coming out and saying, look, well, whatever happens, it won't affect the game. This isn't like the Brood War situation.
What? Remain calm. It could be exactly like the Brood War situation. What are we reading?
Industry figures. Industry figures. I'm not talking about plebs on a subreddit. I'm talking about industry figures. Look, you can go and find this. You know that people have said this. You know people are terrified about it going the same way as Brood War. You know that. Right? And that's my whole point. And this is where we get back to square one. And that is that the reason people jumped all over Thorin, and I'm talking about industry figures, the reason people got triggered by Thorin is because they just want to defend what they've got. They just want to protect the last few glorious months, years, whatever it is, of StarCraft, preserve their own interests, hopefully transition into another game in the meantime, most likely a Blizzard one, and that's what they're interested in. They're not interested in reflecting reality, and that's the difference. StarCraft has an incredibly insecure community. That's my point. That and that is demonstrable by all the evidence that I've used, and we can
demonstrable by like super selective cherry picking with a lot of points that are like barely defensible.
Don't cherry pick your points to prove your arguments.
No,
I mean I've certainly sourced my argument.
I like making real arguments. No, I'm not going to cherry pick. What do you mean?
I think that most of the
statements. Okay, tell me what you think of cherry picked so far. I think that most of the statements I made are pretty broad and apply to a ton of different groups. People will have a negative reaction if you tweet lies about their game that are negative, rather than having a negative reaction.
But again, we come back to this tweeting lies about their game. There was nothing. There was nothing wrong with that article. There was nothing.
No, there wasn't.
There was
anything
nothing wrong with the
We never
article.
said anything about the article. I'm talking about the tweet.
nothing wrong
I'm talking
with
about
the
the tweet, not the article.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
what about cherry pick? What do you feel like of cherry pick? Tell me.
Right. So again, why do people react to that tweet? I'm just repeating myself here. This is ridiculous.
Why do people react to the tweet? Because the tweet made it sound like your game is dead. Let me read the tweet. Who will take Flash's place as a StarCraft 2 superstar? The answer: a shrinking talent pool means no one will. Why would people respond negatively?
What
because
is wrong
tweet
with that?
that's essentially a huge dead game tweet.
What is wrong with that? It's a fair summary of the article. It's not even as bad as you made it.
Oh, come on, Rishna. You just like broke all arguments there.
It's a fair summary of the article.
Oh, you
That's
just...
a fair summary of the article.
It's not a fair summary of the article.
Summary of the article. I remember reading that. It's a fair summary.
Yeah, I did too. I read the whole fucking thing. And the article
summary.
goes on with how the article is essentially talking about how a shrinking tournament scene in Korea means that we might have problems getting some of these high quality players like Flash out. That's a good nuanced statement.
Fair summary.
And there's
you mean
a
like
million other ways.
Oh, right, okay.
There's a million other ways you could have tweeted this article without essentially saying, who will take Flash's place as a StarCraft 2 superstar? The answer,
it triggered everyone because everyone in StarCraft is fucking insecure about the fact that it might be right. That's it.
Okay.
That's it. That's all there is to it. And again, like, you're literally saying that tweet because it uses the phrase, what was it, dwindling talent pool?
Because of the structure of the answer. A shrinking talent pool means no one.
Talent pool, sorry. Yeah. So that's it. So because it summarizes the article, and again, I don't know if you noticed Twitter. Obviously, I know you don't have one at the moment, or maybe you do. Twitter has only a 140 character limit. It can be very hard to summarize articles, especially ones that add nuance and balance. And a fair summary of that article is that no one will ever replace Flash because of a shrinking talent pool. Fair summary. Fair summary.
How about a tweet like a shrinking talent pool may mean that